My mother catfished my wife. I know that sounds like the opening line of a bad sitcom, but I promise you every single word of what I am about to tell you is true. My 62-year-old mother created a fake billionaire profile on Instagram, seduced my wife into an online relationship, tricked her into borrowing $250,000, and then destroyed her life in a courtroom. And the whole time, I had no idea any of it was happening.
If this story hits different, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one.
My name is Marcus, and in 2021 I was 34 years old and married to a woman named Vanessa. We had been together for 5 years, married for 3. I was a high school history teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina. I made $52,000 a year. Vanessa worked part-time as a receptionist at a real estate office. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house with a mortgage we could barely afford, and a Honda Civic with 140,000 miles on it. I loved Vanessa. At least I loved who I thought Vanessa was. She was beautiful, funny, and she had this energy about her that made everything feel exciting. But looking back, there were signs from the very beginning that I chose to ignore. On our second date, she asked me what kind of car I drove. On our 4th date, she asked me how much I made. On our 6th date, she told me she could never be with someone who did not have ambition. I thought she was just being direct. Now I know she was screening me. When we got married, Vanessa started pushing me to change careers. She said teaching was noble, but it would never give us the life we deserved. She wanted me to go into tech, into sales, into anything that paid 6 figures. I told her I loved teaching. She told me love does not pay for a beach house. The first time I realized something was deeply wrong was on our first anniversary. I planned a nice dinner at home, cooked her favorite meal, bought flowers, and set up candles. She looked at the table and said, quote, "This is it," end quote. Not a question, a statement. She had expected a restaurant, a gift, maybe a weekend getaway. A home-cooked dinner from her husband was a disappointment. That stung more than I let on. We fought about money constantly. She would buy things we could not afford. Designer bags, expensive shoes, spa weekends with her friends, and then get angry at me when the credit card bill came. She would say things like, "If you made more money, I would not have to feel guilty about buying things." It was always my fault. Always. By early 2022, I knew something was off. Vanessa was on her phone all the time. She would smile at messages and then tilt the screen away when I walked by. She started going to the gym at strange hours. She bought new lingerie, the kind she never wore for me. She was distant, distracted, and she stopped complaining about money. That last part should have been the biggest red flag of all. I told my mother everything. My mom, Linda, is a retired accountant who lives about 20 minutes from us in Mint Hill. She is sharp as a tack, does not take nonsense from anyone, and she never liked Vanessa. Not from day one. She always said Vanessa had, quote, "hungry eyes," end quote. I thought she was just being an overprotective mother. Turns out she was being a prophet. One Sunday afternoon in March of 2022, I was at my mother's house for lunch. Vanessa had declined to come, saying she had a headache. I was telling my mom about the phone behavior, the gym visits, the new lingerie. Mom listened quietly, which was unusual for her. Usually she had opinions about everything, but that day she just nodded and said, quote, "Marcus, I want you to let me handle this. Do not do anything, do not confront her. Just trust me," end quote. I did not know what she meant and she would not explain. She just patted my hand and changed the subject to her vegetable garden. I left that day feeling confused but strangely reassured. My mother had never let me down before. What I did not know, what I would not find out for another 8 months, was that my mother had already started her operation 3 weeks earlier. She had suspected Vanessa was a gold digger long before I came to her with my concerns, and she had decided to prove it in the most elaborate, diabolical way imaginable. My mother created an Instagram account. The username was Richard Carlton III. The profile picture was a stock photo of a silver-haired man in his 50s standing on the deck of a yacht. The bio read, quote, "Entrepreneur, investor, living life on my own terms. Charlotte, NC to Monaco and back," end quote. She spent 2 weeks building the profile before making any moves. She posted photos of luxury cars, 5-star restaurants, private jets, and penthouse views. All of it was sourced from royalty-free image sites and Creative Commons photos. She wrote captions about business deals, philanthropy, and the loneliness of success. She followed local Charlotte influencers, business accounts, and lifestyle pages to make the profile look authentic. Then she followed Vanessa. Vanessa followed back within 3 hours. Of course she did. A good-looking rich man follows you on Instagram, you follow back. That is Vanessa's love language. Richard Carlton III, my mother's fictional billionaire, started liking Vanessa's photos. Then he started commenting. Subtle stuff at first. Beautiful smile, great taste in restaurants. You have an eye for design. Vanessa ate it up. She started posting more frequently, wearing nicer outfits, going to fancier locations just for the photos. My mother even created a fake story highlight called, quote, Monaco 2021, end quote, with photos of a harbor full of super yachts that she had downloaded from a travel blog. She added another highlight called, quote, the portfolio, end quote, showing stock images of luxury apartment buildings and construction sites. It looked completely real. If I had stumbled across the profile, I would have believed it was a genuine wealthy businessman. After 2 weeks of comments and likes, Richard slid into her DMs. He told her she seemed like an extraordinary woman and that he hoped she would not find it forward of him to reach out directly. Vanessa responded within 4 minutes. What followed was a masterclass in manipulation. Except this time, the manipulator was my 62-year-old mother sitting in her living room in a bathrobe, eating peanut butter crackers and typing on an iPad. Over the next 3 months, Vanessa and Richard developed what she believed was an intense emotional and romantic connection. They texted hundreds of times a day. They had, quote, phone calls, end quote, where Richard always had some excuse for his voice sounding different. Bad connection, just getting over a cold speakerphone in his car. My mother had enlisted her neighbor, a retired theater actor named Gerald, to do the voice work for the calls. Gerald thought the whole thing was hilarious and did it for free. My mother played the role of Richard Carlton III with the dedication of a method actor. She researched luxury brands, wine regions, and real estate terminology so that her conversations with Vanessa would be convincing. She watched hours of YouTube videos about hedge funds and private equity so she could drop financial jargon naturally. She created a fake email address with a custom domain, richardcarlton.com, which she registered for $9. She even had a fake LinkedIn profile with endorsements from other fake profiles she had created. Gerald was equally committed. He practiced his voice in front of a mirror, developing a smooth, confident tone that was part George Clooney, part James Bond. He and my mother would rehearse conversations before calls with Vanessa, going over talking points and anticipating questions. They kept a character sheet for Richard, listing his favorite foods, his travel history, his opinions on art, and his personal values. It was more thorough than most screenplays. Vanessa told Richard everything. She told him she was unhappy in her marriage. She told him her husband was a loser teacher who would never amount to anything. She told him she had only married me because she thought I had more potential. She said she was planning to leave me as soon as she had a better option. My mother screenshotted every single message. In June of 2022, things escalated. Richard told Vanessa he was working on a massive real estate deal and needed a temporary bridge loan of $50,000. He said his funds were tied up in overseas accounts and he would pay her back triple within 30 days. Vanessa did not have $50,000, but she did have access to our joint savings account, which had about $12,000 in it. She also had a credit card with a $30,000 limit that I did not know about. She sent Richard $42,000 via wire transfer. My mother, playing Richard, accepted the money into a separate bank account she had opened specifically for this purpose. She documented everything, the request, the agreement, the transfer, all of it. My mother did not just keep the money. She was playing a longer game. 3 weeks later, Richard paid her back. $126,000, triple the original amount, wired directly into Vanessa's account. Vanessa was ecstatic. She told Richard he was the most generous man she had ever met. She told him she was falling in love with him. She told him she was going to leave me. My mother was laying a trap, and Vanessa was walking right into it. In August, Richard presented a bigger opportunity, a luxury condo development in downtown Charlotte. He needed $250,000 as a short-term investment. He promised a return of $750,000 within 60 days. He showed Vanessa fake investment documents, fake contracts with a fake development company, and fake bank statements showing his net worth of $800 million. All of it created by my mother on her home computer using skills she had learned in 30 years of accounting. Vanessa did not have $250,000, but Richard, ever the gentleman, suggested she take out a loan. He connected her with a, quote, private lending firm, end quote, which was actually a legitimate hard money lender that my mother had found online. Vanessa applied, using our house as collateral without my knowledge, and was approved for $250,000 at 14% interest. She transferred the money to Richard Carlton III. My mother received every penny, and then Richard disappeared. Not immediately. He slowly became harder to reach. Business trips to Dubai, phone troubles, a family emergency in London. The 60-day deadline came and went. Vanessa started panicking. She sent dozens of messages. She called Gerald's burner phone over and over. She even tried to find Richard's office address, which of course did not exist. By October, Vanessa was a wreck. She was not sleeping. She was losing weight. She would sit at the kitchen table staring at her phone, waiting for a message from a man who would never reply because that man was a fictional character operated by a retired accountant. She snapped at me constantly, though I had no idea why at the time. She started drinking more than usual, finishing a bottle of wine by herself on weekday nights. I asked her if she was okay. She said she was fine. She was very much not fine. By October, Vanessa was desperate. She owed $250,000 to a hard money lender at 14% interest, secured against our house. She had no way to pay it back, and the man she had fallen in love with, the man she was going to leave me for, had vanished into thin air. That is when my mother called me and asked me to come over for dinner. She said she had something to show me. I drove to her house on a Tuesday evening, expecting maybe a new recipe or photos from her garden. Instead, she sat me down at her kitchen table, opened a laptop and said, quote, "Marcus, I need you to watch something and I need you to stay calm," end quote. She showed me everything, every screenshot, every text message, every voice recording Gerald had made, every wire transfer receipt, every fake document she had created. She showed me Vanessa calling me a loser. She showed me Vanessa saying she only married me for money I did not have. She showed me Vanessa transferring our savings to a stranger. She showed me Vanessa taking out a $250,000 loan against our house. And then she showed me the bank account where all the money sat, untouched, in a trust my mother had set up with a lawyer. Every single dollar. The $42,000, the $250,000. All of it, documented and preserved as evidence. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time without speaking. My mother made me a cup of tea and waited. Finally, I looked at her and said, quote, "Mom, what do we do now?" end quote. She smiled and said, quote, "Now we go to war," end quote. My mother had already hired an attorney. His name was David Okafor, and he was one of the most respected family law attorneys in Mecklenburg County. David had reviewed all the evidence and said it was, quote, "the most comprehensive case of spousal betrayal and financial fraud he had ever seen," end quote. We filed for divorce in November of 2022, but we did not just file for divorce. We filed for divorce on grounds of adultery, citing Vanessa's emotional and intended physical affair with a person she believed to be Richard Carlton III. We filed a civil fraud complaint against Vanessa for taking out a loan against our jointly owned property without my knowledge or consent. And my mother separately filed a civil lawsuit against Vanessa for the $250,000, arguing that Vanessa had obtained the money through fraudulent pretenses, presenting herself as a legitimate investment partner when she was actually funneling the funds to impress a romantic interest she intended to leave her husband for. Now, I know what you are thinking. How can you sue someone for money they gave you voluntarily? Here is the genius of what my mother did. The money was framed as an investment loan. Vanessa had signed documents, fake ones created by my mother, but Vanessa had signed them believing they were real. Those documents stated that the funds were a business investment to be repaid with interest. Vanessa had defaulted on that agreement. My mother, through her lawyer, was simply enforcing the contract. Now, the legal theory was complex, and I am not going to pretend I understood all of it at first. David walked me through it 3 times before I grasped the nuances. The key was that Vanessa had not simply been given money by a stranger. She had entered into a written agreement, signed documents that outlined terms and conditions for an investment return. The fact that the investment was fictitious did not change the fact that Vanessa had received money under contractual terms and had failed to return it. She had breached the contract. She owed the money back. Was it entrapment? Arguably. Was it ethically murky? Absolutely. Was it legal? David Okafor said it was a gray area, but the evidence of Vanessa's intent to defraud, to cheat, and to steal from our marriage was overwhelming. No jury in North Carolina was going to feel sorry for her. Vanessa was served divorce papers on a Monday. She was served the civil lawsuit on a Wednesday. And on Friday, she found out that Richard Carlton III was her mother-in-law. I was not there for that moment, but David Okafor told me about it later. Vanessa was in a conference room with her lawyer, reviewing the evidence in the civil case, when she saw the bank account records. The account that had received her $250,000 was in the name of the Linda Chen Family Trust. Linda Chen, my mother. According to David, Vanessa screamed. Not yelled, screamed. She knocked over a chair, threw a water bottle against the wall, and had to be physically restrained by her own attorney. She kept saying, quote, "That old woman did this to me. That old woman set me up," end quote. Her lawyer told her to calm down. Vanessa fired her lawyer on the spot. I remember the moment it truly sank in. I was standing in my mother's kitchen, surrounded by printed screenshots of my wife's conversations with a man who did not exist, and I felt two contradictory emotions at the same time. First, I was heartbroken. The woman I had loved, the woman I had shared a bed with for 5 years, had called me a loser. She had said I would never amount to anything. She had told a stranger she only married me because she thought I had potential, like I was a stock she had invested in and wanted to sell at a loss. But the second emotion was gratitude. My mother had done this. My 62-year-old mother, who grew her own tomatoes and watched Jeopardy every night, had engineered an operation that would make the CIA jealous. She had done it because she loved me. She had done it because she saw what I could not see. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Vanessa went through 3 attorneys in 4 months. Each one reviewed the evidence, saw the mountain of screenshots and recordings, and told her the same thing. You are going to lose. One of them reportedly told her to accept whatever deal was offered and be grateful she was not facing criminal charges. But Vanessa was not the grateful type. She fought everything. She claimed my mother had entrapped her. She claimed the screenshots were fabricated. She claimed she had never taken out a loan against the house. Every claim was disproven with documentation. In March of 2023, the divorce was finalized. I got the house. Vanessa was ordered to pay back the hard money loan from her own assets and future earnings. She received nothing from the marriage, no alimony, no property, nothing. The judge cited her, quote, egregious pattern of financial deception and marital misconduct, end quote. The civil lawsuit was settled out of court in May. Vanessa agreed to repay my mother the full $250,000 plus $37,000 in legal fees, structured over 10 years with interest. If she missed a payment, the full balance would become due immediately, and my mother could pursue wage garnishment. But the story does not end there. Remember that hard money loan, the one Vanessa took out against our house at 14% interest? When she signed those loan documents, she had forged my signature. I never authorized that loan. I never knew about it. Vanessa had committed mortgage fraud, which is a felony in North Carolina. The lender discovered the forged signature during the divorce proceedings and reported it to the authorities. Vanessa was charged with 1 count of mortgage fraud and 1 count of forgery. She pleaded no contest and was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a permanent felony on her record. A felony. Let me say that again because it deserves emphasis. A felony conviction. Vanessa, who used to brag about her designer handbags and spa weekends, who used to look down on people who shopped at Target, who once told me that appearances were everything, now had a felony record. Do you know what a felony does to your life? She lost her job at the real estate office because they require background checks. She could not rent an apartment because landlords check records. She moved in with her sister in a 2-bedroom apartment in Gastonia and started working at a call center. Meanwhile, my mother became something of a local legend. The story had leaked, as stories always do in small southern towns, and people could not stop talking about it. The retired accountant who catfished her daughter-in-law. It was the kind of story that spread through church groups and PTA meetings like wildfire. A reporter from Charlotte magazine reached out to my mother for an interview. Mom agreed, on the condition that she could tell the whole story her way. The article was published in August of 2023, and it went viral. The headline was, quote, "Mother Knows Best, How a Retired Accountant Exposed Her Daughter-in-Law's Double Life," end quote. Within a week, my mother had been contacted by 2 production companies. One wanted to make a documentary. The other wanted to option the story for a scripted series. Mom went with the documentary company. She signed a rights deal worth, and I still cannot believe this number, $380,000. My retired mother, who clips coupons and grows her own tomatoes, made $380,000. selling the rights to the story of how she catfished my wife. Mom took to the spotlight like a fish to water. She wore her best church dress to every interview. She spoke clearly and confidently, like she was presenting a quarterly earnings report, which in a way she was. She had receipts for everything, literal receipts, color-coded, organized in binders with sticky tabs. The production company said they had never worked with a subject who was so well prepared. Gerald, the retired actor, signed a release form and appeared in the documentary as himself. He recreated some of the phone calls with Richard's voice, which was both hilarious and deeply unsettling. Watching a 70-year-old man in a cardigan say things like, quote, "I have never felt this way about anyone before, Vanessa," end quote, in a smooth baritone while sitting in a recliner was peak absurdist cinema. The documentary, which premiered on a streaming platform in early 2024, was called, quote, "The Catfish Mother," end quote. It featured interviews with my mother, with David Okafor, with Gerald, the retired actor who played Richard's voice, and even with some of Vanessa's former friends who had watched the whole thing unfold. Vanessa declined to participate, which surprised no one. The documentary got 12 million views in its first month. My mother did a press tour. She went on podcasts. She was invited to speak at a women's financial literacy event. Gerald got a small acting role in a local commercial because of the exposure. And I, the quiet history teacher who just wanted a happy marriage, became known as the guy whose mom saved him. I am not going to pretend it was all easy. The months between finding out and the divorce being finalized were some of the hardest of my life. Learning that the woman you love thinks you are a loser, that she married you under false pretenses, that she was willing to steal from you and leave you for a man who did not exist, that breaks something inside you. I went to therapy. I cried more than I care to admit. There were nights I sat in my empty house and wondered if I would ever trust anyone again. But I had my mom, and that made all the difference. Last Thanksgiving, Mom hosted dinner at her house. It was just the two of us, plus Gerald and his wife and my cousin Denise. Mom made her famous sweet potato casserole and cornbread. After dinner, I helped her wash the dishes, and I asked her something I had never asked before. I said, quote, "Mom, were you ever worried it would not work, that Vanessa would not take the bait," end quote. My mother dried her hands on a dish towel, looked at me and said, quote, "Marcus, I was not worried for 1 second. I know a gold digger when I see one. I have been an accountant for 30 years. I can smell greed like a bloodhound smells a rabbit. That woman was never going to say no to money," end quote. Then she paused and said, quote, "I was worried about you though. I was worried about breaking your heart. That was the hard part. The rest was just math," end quote. Just math. My mother brought down my wife's entire life, and she called it math. The aftermath was profound, not just for Vanessa, but for all of us. My mother received fan mail. Actual letters from strangers telling her she was their hero. One woman in Ohio wrote a 3-page letter saying that my mother's story had inspired her to finally leave her own gold-digging husband. A retired teacher in Georgia sent her a homemade pecan pie with a note that said, quote, "From one tough old bird to another," end quote. My mother framed that note. The money from the documentary deal changed my mother's life. Though not in the way you might expect. She did not buy a fancy car or move to a bigger house. She paid off her mortgage. She donated $50,000 to a women's financial literacy nonprofit. She started a college fund for her future grandchildren. And she bought a new set of gardening tools, the expensive kind with ergonomic handles that she had been eyeing for years but could never justify. Vanessa is still paying my mother back. She has not missed a payment yet, probably because she knows what happens if she does. She is still working at the call center. She is still living with her sister. She deleted all her social media accounts. I heard through mutual friends that she tried to date someone new, but when he Googled her name, the Charlotte magazine article came up, and he ghosted her. As for me, I am still teaching history. I bought my mother a new iPad for Christmas because her old one, the one she used to catfish my wife, finally gave out. I started dating someone new, a kindergarten teacher named Alicia who thinks my mom is hilarious. Mom approves. She says Alicia has, quote, "kind eyes," end quote. Coming from my mother, that is the highest compliment there is. And Gerald, the retired actor? He is still my mother's neighbor. He still comes over for dinner every Thursday. And every time he sees me, he winks and says, in the smooth baritone voice he used as Richard Carlton III, quote, "Good to see you, old sport," end quote. Then he laughs so hard he wheezes, every single Thursday. I used to think my mother was overprotective. I used to think she was too involved, too suspicious, too controlling. Now I know she was just paying attention. She saw what I could not see. She protected me when I could not protect myself. And she did it with a fake Instagram account, a retired actor, and 30 years of accounting skills. If there is a lesson in all of this, I think it is this: listen to your mother. Especially if your mother is a retired accountant with a grudge. Because mothers know things, they see things. And if you are lucky, they will go to war for you, even if that war involves creating a fake billionaire named Richard Carlton III.